Hey, what's up guys? Windex D354 here, and welcome to another The Division video. Now this one is going to be a review of the Predator's Mark gear set, which was added alongside the other new gear sets with the 1.2 update. So this was the one that I was looking forward to the most, and I was lucky enough to get two pieces right off the bat when I completed the Clear Sky incursion for the first time. A backpack and a mask, 214 both of them. The backpack wasn't, so good. It had electronics and it did not have critical hit damage, so I had to roll the electronics into firearms and lose the critical hit damage. But since then, I've been lucky grinding the Dark Zone, so I got a 240 backpack that did have critical hit damage on, so it still had skill power, but I just had to roll it for firearms and I had the critical hit damage there. Then I got a really nice chest piece, which has, it has pretty good amount of armor. It has, ammo capacity, and then it has two mod slots for, by default. So really good. All I did was roll the stamina to kind of get it closer to the cap so that I could have a little extra toughness. Then I got 240 gloves that had the cap of critical hit damage, 40%. They had the SMG damage and they had firearms. All I had to do was roll in the critical hit chance, so really lucky there. So I'm just gonna review the set. So I'm gonna go over what it does and kind of show you what each thing does, like in effect, before I show you, some gameplay of both PvE and PvP, and then letting you know how it performs. So when you have two pieces of it, you get 20% optimal range. Now that means that your weapon will have more range, so your damage will drop off at a much longer distance. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off the pieces so that I can show you exactly how it, what it looks like. So let's see, kind of want to have around the same DPS. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and equip this. Then I'm gonna go switch my mask for this one. And finally switch the backpack for this one and put firearms. So it's not exactly the same. I had 215, but this is more or less the same. So I have only one piece, the gloves, so we're going to go ahead and show you. So I'm going to use the 204 AUG, so you can see I deal 25k, 10,000, no, it's 25 and 10,000, right? So I'm going to go ahead here and shoot at a distance, and you'll see that I deal 13 and 5,000 at, at that distance. So then keep in mind, remember that I do 25 and 10,000 up close. The 25 is the critical hit, and then the 10 is the just normal hit. And here I do 13 and 5,700. So I'm gonna go ahead and then equip another Predator's Mark piece here. Let me see I'll go with the backpack. So again, DPS isn't exactly the same, but it gives you more or less, it's only a couple thousand, so it won't really matter all that much. So I have two pieces, Predator's Mark, so you can see that the 20% optimal range is in effect. So up close, again, I do 25 and 10,000. But if we go at a distance, you'll see that I'm dealing 14,000 and 6,000. So about 1,000 extra when compared to before. Look, and there it was 15,000. So you can see that the 20 optimal range basically means that without it, I'm dealing the same here, obviously, but at that distance, I'm losing 1,000, per shot, more or less, 1,000, 1,500. But with the optimal range, I can deal that extra bit of damage over there. It might not seem like much, but per shot it quickly stacks, so it'll ensure that you can maintain more damage and more DPS, at a longer distance. So now I'm equipped. I didn't have a shotgun, a high-end one, so I just bought this green one right off the bat. So we're just gonna repeat the same thing with a shotgun, see more or less how it performs. So let's go again. one piece. So you can see I deal about 7,000 per pellet. Then at that distance, I'm dealing like, what is it? Like 1,000, I'm seeing. Yeah, it's like 1,800, something like that. So then, again, equip the optimal range. So once again, 7,000 per shot. However, over here, I'm still dealing, let's see, it's about, I'd say it's about, I think it's about the same. So with a shotgun, I thought that maybe, I haven't actually tested it, but with a shotgun, but I'm doing it now, but it looks like the numbers don't change too much. I mean, maybe it's too far away, but I was thinking since shotguns have, because they are shotguns, have less range overall, maybe with the optimal range, they could be a little more useful at a little more, bit more range. But at the very least, you could tell that at least with the SMGs, it gives you a little bit of extra range, a little bit of extra damage at a farther distance. So, it's all right. So then, let's go with the. I enjoy that 20% range though. I feel like when I'm in the actual like firefights outside, like in the DC and whatnot, I feel like I can shoot enemies better at a distance. Like I feel like I'm doing more damage. Before it was like I was tickling them. Now I feel like the SMG has a bit more punch. So now for 3 pieces you get 800 assault rifle damage and 700 pistol damage. So for an assault rifle, let's see, I have this custom P416. So as you can see, it has 7,822 damage, 78k DPS. So I'm going to go ahead then and equip the Predator's mask. So as you can see, I'll lose a bit of DPS. Let's equip the assault rifle. So that. Okay, so as you can see, I'll lose some DPS when I equip this. Yeah, a little bit. Let me see if I can kind of get it a bit more. See, I can equip this with critical hit damage on it. I have the firearms over here. Yeah, I'll remove that. Add it to this. Then I'll equip this. What you'll see is that it was 77k, I believe, without it. Yeah, 77k, and then it went up at 10,000 DPS, the assault rifle. And damage is now 8,622. So, that 800 additional damage. I'm going to go ahead and strip IM1A so that I can mod this assault rifle, compare the DPS. So what you'll see is that when compared to an SMG, again, you really can't compete. You can get your assault rifle will have a little extra, punch to it, so it does help to make them a little more viable, especially if I have 214 gloves I rolled, they have assault rifle damage on them, so if I equip them, my assault rifle goes up to 180 DPS, the SMG goes down to 205, but you can see that even with assault rifle damage on the gloves, you can, and that 800 from the actual set, you see that the assault rifle is still inferior to the SMG when it comes to actual raw damage. I mean DPS, and even in damage, you have 10.4k here, and they have 10.5k here, so they're both 204, and still the SMG not only out damages the assault rifle, but it out DPSs it as well, meaning that even with gloves rolled for assault rifle damage and the Predator set, assault rifles won't, outdo SMGs in terms of DPS, but it can help if you really want to use, an assault rifle. And then, you got the extra pistol damage, so I got this tactical M1911, it's got 12k. Let me see if I can do, again, remove the, you can see it has 72k, and then it goes up to 75, and then up to 79. You can see, it says it'll go to 75, and then goes to 79, so again, you wouldn't really use it for the extra pistol damage, because, pistols aren't really what you're supposed to use when you want to deal damage, but they can save your life, you know, in the DC, if you run out of ammo in the middle of a firefight, they can help you. You know, you have something to fall back to. So that extra bit of pistol damage can, you know, come in handy. But really, if you're gonna use that, you know, 3-piece, it's for the extra assault rifle damage. So I'll go ahead and strip this once again and go to the M1A before we take a look at the whole, what you get for the 4-piece, as well as just get my stats right up. So again, Predator's mask, and then these gloves, and I'm pretty sure everything is in place. Yeah, so now for the 4-piece, you get the Predator's Mark talent. Hit 10 shots without switching targets to make the target bleed for 100% of the damage already done by those bullets. Now, just gonna give you a quick showing you, you know, a couple things about this talent. So first things first, you see that little green indicator next to my gun? That tracks, you know, that little green rectangle, that tracks your shots. So you can keep track of how many shots you fired, you know, towards this. So as you can see, I'll shoot once, you know, well, twice, and you see 2 out of 10. You know, 4 out of 10. So that keeps track of how much, you know, how many shots you have. So first things first, you don't get penalized for waiting. So as you can see, I'll shoot them, and then, you know, I can wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, I can just wait. You see the bar's not decreasing whatsoever, so I can wait a fairly good amount of time. So it's not like the Strikers set, which penalizes you. You know, you lose damage for every second that you're not dealing anything. You can see, you know, it's been like over 10 seconds, and yet the bar hasn't go down. You know, I shoot again, and I still have the effect going. You can miss, and you don't get penalized. You see, I missed completely, and the bar is still there. So, you know, unlike Strikers, you can miss, you can wait as much as you want between shots, and you won't get penalized. You won't lose, you know, shots towards this. What does make you, the only thing that makes you lose track is switching targets. So if you see, if I shoot this one, it'll reset. So it says, you know, it says it in the description without switching targets. But again, I can wait as long as I want between shots. I can miss all I want. I can even switch weapons, and it'll continue, you know, it'll keep going on my next weapon. So it's very flexible, you know, and it's not as punishing as Strikers. You can, you know, miss, you can do whatever you want, and you can still keep track of it. Now, the only thing is, with the damage is what I can't keep track of. It says 100%, so you might think, like Tacticians, that it'll, like, double what you already dealt for those, you know, 10 rounds. Maybe, you know, what... Or I thought it was like maybe all those rounds combined, 100%. But as you can see, I'll go ahead and shoot this guy over here to reset it. So I'll shoot this guy all 10 times. So what you can see is that he's bleeding for 28k. But if you saw clearly, I was bleeding 25 on some shots. So it's obviously not cumulative all 10 shots, nor is it double that. So really, I have like no idea yet of what it does to like actually calculate, you know, now there it's 23k. What I do know is that on at least on this dummy, it takes about 7-8 times for that amount of damage, about like 6-7 seconds. So it's still a pretty good amount of extra damage, and you know, damage does, you know, whatever damage you do deal, it does increase. You know, body shots, you can see he'll bleed for 26. However, as soon as he stops, I'm going to go for headshots only, and you'll see that the more damage you deal, the bleed will, you know, be for more. But I still have no clear idea of exactly what it does to calculate, you know, how much damage the bleed will do. So you can see, you know, I go for just headshots, and you can see it's bleeding for 45k instead, which is about 20k more than it did for just body shots. Then I'm going to see the pull. You can see I'm dealing a lot of extra damage, and then, you know, he's bleeding for 59k. So anything you can do, you know, headshots, the pulls, as much, you know, if you deal the most damage you can in those 10 shots, the bleed will be for more. You know, if I use my marksman and get, you know, massive damage on headshots, you can see he's bleeding for 143k, which is massive. So if you know, the bleed can be pretty insignificant if you do like really little damage. Like maybe if I go, you know, if I go with like a pistol, you know, it won't really do, you know, 16K. It won't really matter much. Okay, the recording kind of cuts. I'll continue. So it doesn't really matter much when you do really little, you know, amounts of damage. However, if you go for really high damage with like a marksman or something, you'll see that the bleed can really, you know, hurt the target. You can really cause some serious damage with the bleed alone. And then another little nice thing is that, again, I'm gonna pull out my green shotgun. Is that shotgun pellets behave kind of like bullets in this game. You know, each individual pellet is a bullet, so if you shoot, you know, like you can proc, you know, the one is none with just a pellet. So if I shoot this, you know, you can see it's at 9 out of 10 already. And then one more shot, that's it, you know. So with a shotgun, you need only 2 shots to apply the bleed. There it kind of didn't do it with 2 shots. Let's see, let's wait for the bleed to go away. Again, this is a green shotgun, so don't let the damage fool you. You can see 8 out of 10, and that's it. 2 shots, and it procs with the shotgun. So that's a useful way to quickly apply a bleed on the target. With a better shotgun, you know, better perks, higher damage, and whatnot, the damage will be a little more, you know, more impressive. And then another thing is that you cannot make the target bleed when it's already bleeding. Like, you cannot refresh it. You'll see, you know, I get 10 shots, and then it's bleeding. I shoot, but the bar doesn't go up. Once the bleed is gone, that's when the bar goes up again. So you can't refresh it. You need to allow the target to bleed the full duration before you can reapply it. So again, it's pretty useful for extra bit of DPS, especially if you use like a marksman, you use a pulse. You can deal some solid extra bleed damage. But, you know, again, it depends really on the weapon. But as you saw, it's really flexible. It's really, you know, you don't have to go through many hoops to actually activate it, and it's not as bad as strikers. You don't get penalized for missing or anything like that. You can even switch weapons, and you can apply it with any weapon. The set gives you assault rifle damage, so you might think it's like an assault rifle only ability. But you can do it, as you saw, shotguns, SMGs, marksmen, anything. So, pretty good there. So a couple more things you need to know about Predator's Mark is the fact that the shrapnel talent, which has a chance to apply bleed to any targets around the target that you apply the bleed to, does not work with this set, which is unfortunate because that would really multiply, you know, its utility. Next is that the predatory talent, which gives you health when you kill an enemy, can proc when the target bleeds out. You know, when he dies from the bleed, you can get the health back. And if you happen to do that, you know, if you die after applying the bleed and the bleed successfully kills the target, you can actually be revived by the health you get back from the predatory talent. And finally, while you cannot refresh the bleed on the target, you need to wait for it to, you know, fall off. You can apply a bleed to one target, move on to another target, and apply a bleed to another target. So you can apply the bleed to multiple targets, not only one. You know, even though you can refresh it, and while you can use shrapnel, you can still, you know, make more targets bleed. However, because of the short duration of the actual effect, it's very hard to make, you know, more than 2 targets bleed at the same time. By the time the other one, you know, starts bleeding, the previous one probably is already not bleeding. So when it comes to how this set performs, when it comes to PvE, it's pretty effective due to the fact that NPCs take more damage than they do, you know, than actual players in PvP. So the bleed damage is much better in PvE. So on weaker enemies, you can actually use the 10 shots, apply the bleed, and the 10 shots will probably, you know, shred through the armor and leave the target almost dead. And you can then just move on to another target and let the bleed take care of the first target. This speeds up, you know, encounters, because instead of having to focus down one target and move on, you can just shoot that target until he starts to bleed and move on and let the bleed take care of him. Additionally, on tougher enemies, maybe like tanks or higher leveled enemies, you can shoot them a bunch of times and then take cover, reload, heal up, and the bleed will keep on the damage, and then you can, by the time the bleed drops off, you're back out shooting at them. So this allows you to keep constant damage on targets, on the beefier targets. And if you can make more targets bleed, bleed one, move on, bleed the other, and keep going, you can go progressively making multiple targets, wear down the entire mob so that they all die around the same time. So the bleed is pretty useful. Again, if you happen to, maybe like on 34 enemies in the dark zone, headshot them with a marksman, and the bleed is gonna be, the damage is gonna be pretty good. So it does help, and when you're just focusing on one target, not taking cover and whatnot, the bleed will add to your overall DPS, or the overall damage that you're dealing, because as you keep shooting them, they're still bleeding, so you're dealing more overall damage. Now, when it comes to PvP, it works more or less. It doesn't work in the same regard. Yes, sure. If a target, if a player is very weak and you apply a bleed, they can die from it, but it's not as reliable. Again, you don't usually deal that much damage to players in PvP, not as much as an NPC. So the bleed damage isn't that significant, meaning that you really can't rely on it to, like let a target just bleed out, especially because, unlike NPCs, they can pop a heal or use a med kit. The true utility, the true usefulness of the Predator set for PvP is the fact that the bleed will prevent them from running away. When you're, in the bleed status, you can't sprint, you can only walk. So this is useful whenever you're pursuing a rogue. They tend to, whenever a rogue sees that the fight is not in their favor, they usually run away, and it becomes, a pretty, big chase. This can make it much easier for you to catch up to them. Just shoot them as they're running, apply the bleed, and this will force them to walk, allowing you to breach the gap much closer, much faster, allowing you to then get within more effective range where you can then deal much more damage and reapply the bleed, preventing them from running away. This also works really well in that when you're bleeding, you can't use, you can't heal. So when you're dealing with a tactician player, a tanktician player more specifically, they tend to run around and dodge roll, around you, trying to like get their cooldowns, get their heal back up so that they can use it and get their sticky back up. If you say, you apply a bleed, not only will they be unable to, move around as much, allowing you to more easily focus them down, but you'll prevent them from using their heal, which extends their longevity, making it much easier to kill them. So while the bleed, while it won't allow you to leave a target, let a target bleed out, I've only had this happen once. And it won't really add that much DPS due to the low damage that you generally deal. The utility is there, preventing players from running away, whether it's a rogue or if you're a rogue, a potential victim, and for keeping tactician players from healing and from running away or moving around too much. That's the true beauty of the Predator's Mark set within PvP. So that's it for this. It's a pretty fun set. Definitely my favorite one from the new ones. So if you enjoyed the video, if you found it helpful, please drop a like. A lot of work went into the testing and all of it, the editing and all of it. It's a pretty long video, but really wanted to go in depth on the set. So if you enjoyed it, if it helped you, please drop a like, support the video, and do subscribe for more The Division. If you have any requests for maybe a review of another gear set or for a weapon or something, by all means, leave it in the description. Again, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.